questions, why is it set up this way? So they're going to try having a board meeting here tonight. So it is set up for the board meeting. They want to do it ahead of time just to make sure that they could fit enough chairs in here and all the equipment that they need. So we'll deal with it for now, the way it's set up. Ideally, I mean, because we put our safety meetings out a year in advance, can't really change what we put out there last spring. And so next year, if they decide to keep having the board meetings here, we'll just be on an off schedule so that we have our space set up the way we like it set up. Or you have tables in case we want you to write something or put your food and drinks on. All right. Everybody have a good weekend?
How about you?
A little chilly. Yes, I got a lot done. Thank you for asking. A long way to go, but got a lot done. All right. All right, first on the list, we have birthdays for the month. Rudy, he's here. Dave Derby, or Derby. John Pedersen. Andy Carroll. And Bobby Brown. Accidents. We've only gone about a week without an accident, because we did have, unfortunately, a bus back into one of the light poles at South. And so 6 days today, 7 days tomorrow, we start over again. But it kind of goes back to, we've said it over and over and over again, don't back up without a spotter. And this is why. It's really, really hard to see what's behind you unless you're gonna put it in park and keep walking back to see where your tail end is. You should always have a spotter. What was that for? All right, I'm gonna go over inclement weather again, even though the weather's looking pretty good through the end of December if you're traveling for the holidays. If you like a white Christmas, I guess it's not great for you. And this was put out by the superintendent. You guys probably saw it, but just want to make sure everyone knows what the procedure is. And so our first priority is always to have in person. And we are going to go if we can possibly go. One of the things that we have to take into consideration, because I know a lot of people say, oh, the buses are huge and they're heavy, the buses will get through. And they will. But we have to have drivers for those buses, right? And so if the drivers can't get in, we have to call. We have to call it. And it's better to be safe. If the weather's bad, but appears like it's going to be improving or already is improving, we'll look at implementing a late start. So a late start would be 2 hours. It's always 2 hours. So if you clock in at 7:15 on a normal day, what time would you clock in? 9:15. It's going to run exactly 2 hours later. Any questions on that? If weather is such that we cannot transport students, you will receive an early morning robocall from the district. As you've had them before, they send it all out at the same time. It'll go out if they've called school. If the plan is for students to have an e-learning day, we'll send out training. that training does have to be completed on that day to get credit for it and to get paid for the day. The students are not having an e-learning day. The day will be added to the end of the school year. And currently, the last day for Geneva is Friday, May 24th. You'll see that following week is on the calendar in red. That's because if we have a snow day and they don't feel they've had enough time to warn the students to take their supplies home, that they can work from home with the teacher, then they will not call, obviously. We'll just call it a snow day. If Geneva closes, no one transports, even if your school is open. So if Geneva says we can't even get kids to Mill Creek, we're certainly not gonna take kids to Lyle or Wheaton or Elgin, right? That's just a lawsuit waiting to happen. So keep that in mind. If Geneva doesn't go, no one goes. Any questions on any of that? I'm going to go to the transportation hub again. So I want you guys to get very familiar with this. How many have been to the hub? Right. There is obviously under district sites a lot of things that you can go in and look at. If you go into the superintendent's office, you'll see what we just went over, what happens during a snow day if you need a refresher. If you go to HR, you can see your agreements. Nobody need to. If you go to transportation, and you go to driver resources, you're going to see Brandy is uploaded to the season to Jingle and Mingle, and that's where your invite is. Just click on it, and you're gonna see she has the date, the time, everything on there. Gift cards for Harrison, if you want to take a look, when they need to be turned in, and the toy drive for Cal's Angels. If you click on the invitation, you'll see all the same information, time it starts, what day it is, but also you can RSVP now. Just click on it. And then you can also see how many people have signed up, what they've signed up for, what we still need people as far as bringing stuff in. Large cooler with ice, that's an easy one. Hope you'd sign up for that by now. Mozzarella cheese, sweet peppers, a lot of easy stuff left in there. So get signed up because we need to know. We need to order ahead of time the meat for it to be here and to have enough for everyone. If you need help, come in and see us. Because we really do need an accurate count so that we don't run out. Any questions on any of that? All right. Clearinghouse. So I don't know how many of you may have seen that they've come out with another ruling. I won't read through all of this. You can if you would like to. But it is basically by November 18th of 2024. If you were to have a mark against your license, a DUI, basically is what they're talking about here. We go in and we remove you, you no longer work for us, from our employment, and we can report to the clearinghouse that that has happened. But for districts who don't, or for private companies that don't, they've now added the state licensing facilities that they have to notify the clearinghouse. Too many, I guess, things falling through the cracks, so to speak. where things aren't being reported, so that's basically what that ruling means. We or you do it, but, apparently some aren't. Any questions on that? Good. Documented post trips. We do now have to document when you're done with your route. So every morning, we mark you guys off when you do your radio check. It is required, so you do have to call in for a radio check, so we mark you off. But we do now have to start marking off when you're done with your route. And some of you may have noticed Otis had started it back in the spring. Because they were doing that from the place that he had come from. And now it's a law. So when you finish your route in the PM, your last school, and this will start after the holidays, so you need to walk your bus. So if you're one of those people that needs to pull over into a neighborhood and walk your bus, don't just call us and say, before you do that you're empty. You have to physically get up and walk your bus, and then you will call in.
When you say walk the bus, do you mean inside or outside?
Inside. Yeah.
It's the student check.
So basically, you're gonna call in, you're gonna say, I'm empty, RTB, return to base. So you're verifying that you did your child check after your last route and you have no students on the bus and you're returning to base. Any questions on that?
See, that's gonna be a new law, you say?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can't do that now.
Except for calling in, that's the only thing that's different.
I never called in.
Yes, we have to have proof though, so we're marking it off as you call in.
Okay.
And we'll do the same thing, as we do for your radio checks in the morning. We're gonna mark you off. We're not gonna respond to, 65 drivers. We're just gonna mark you off. If for some reason we don't hear you, we'll call you and say, we missed your child
Already
check.
in January?
Yes, when you come back from the holidays. We just figured it'll be a good time to start and we'll send out a reminder. Any other questions on that?
Both AM and PM.
Yes.
It says up here both AM.
So after your last route in the AM, after your last route in the PM.
Why, so in the AM, everyone gets done at the same time?
Yep.
So, like, how does that work?
Well, you guys are gonna have to be patient while you turn. And not everyone, is unloaded at the same time. I'm sure we'll figure it out, if someone else is calling in, then try to wait your turn. If you need to start your travel back here, but you've already done it, but you weren't able to call it in, then call it in on your way back.
So we don't have to sit, wait
No,
to,
it just has to be done before you exit the bus. Any other questions? There are districts way bigger than us that have to do this, so I know it seems like it's not gonna work, but
The middays, I know you gotta do it after your morning. You do it after your morning and then again after your midday and then after your afternoon route.
correct.
field trip, but not field trip, right?
Is there a town code we could use for that?
So basically, you're just gonna call in and say empty RTB. That's as short as we can make it. Any other questions on that? All right, just some reminders. Again, Brandy emails out a calendar with our blackout dates, so please do not request that day off unless you have a family emergency. That means we're already struggling to cover routes. use the 630-463-3004 number. If you don't need to talk to one of us specifically, that's the number to call. If you're calling in sick, that's the number to call. Because we just had it happen. We had it happen with, when Kelly was out, people calling her directly. We had it happen when Matt was out, people calling him directly. You can't do that. You have to have a little respect for people who may also not be feeling well, or they may not be at work yet. And so, if you call the main line, who's ever in charge that morning is there, they can answer that line. Instead of, Kelly sitting there knowing Matt's phone's ringing, but she's dealing with people walking in the front door or her phone ringing. Just call the main line. Are any questions on that? Okay. Elementary students are to be in their correct seats. They have assigned seats. They have assigned seats for a reason. This helps the principals who are trying to help the drivers keep these kids under control, especially in the afternoon when they're all wound up after sitting in school all day. And we continue to pull video when there's an issue on the bus and thinking, the right person has been written up or a UOR is done, only to find out kid's not in the right seat. So we have not written up the right kid or done a UOR on the right student. So if your students are not in their correct seats, or if you need another copy of your seating chart, come in and get one and get it under control. Get those kids in the right seats. And part of that is when the principals step in to help with the seating chart, they're with them all day. They know, they do not want certain kids sitting together. So they are trying to help. If you see that they put two kids together and it's just really not working, come tell us. We'll let the principal know. It might sound like a good idea at the time, but these kids cannot sit together. Okay? Students should be seated when you're pulling up to the school in the morning until you stop and open the door. We have a lot of elementary students who just pulling into the bus turnaround, they're all standing up. They have to stay seated. If they're not doing that, again, you need to let them know. These are the rules. They need to stay seated until you come to a complete stop and open the door for them to exit. And again, just another reminder, because when we pulled video, we're still seeing this happen. You must stop behind the white lines. If you need to creep up, you can creep up, but you do need to stop behind the white lines. And you also need to come to a complete stop. 1,000, 1,000. You guys probably learned that when you first got your driver's license, right? Any questions on any of that? Anything anyone wants to bring up? Any issues? You want to talk to as a group? Talk to as a group? That's your chance.
On testing, on high school testing, on the last day, is that gonna be a normal day for us when they do the makeups on the last one? Are you gonna have 3 or 4 buses there, or have you made a decision on that?
Matt, have you heard from the high school?
I have not. I was going to reach out to them this week. I haven't heard anything about testing yet.
Okay.
I think it may be on, Randy, isn't it posted somewhere, high school testing times?
Yes.
I don't know where I saw it, but is it on the hub, or do you remember?
No, they emailed it to me,
Okay.
so I can put it out there,
Okay.
so everybody has it.
So Brandy will get that out, and then we'll double check with the high school. Typically, they do east-west, central buses, but we'll get a confirmation of that. Any other questions? No? Funny story? I feel like I'm always up here nagging.
You know,
Nag, nag.
the sitting down until your door opens, they're taught by their parents not to do that. Do you ever see people in an airplane when you're taxiing into the
Mhm. Well, we had a huge problem with this at Harrison, or at Heartland, and I can tell you they can learn, because within days, every Heartland driver had their kids seated until that door opened. It can be done. But they're not gonna do it. They're children. They're gonna need reminders. They're gonna need an explanation of why we don't stand up before the bus comes to a complete stop and the door opens. But that's part of the job. It really is. It is a constant reminder with the kids, talking to them, reminding them you can't do that. Praising them when they do it. It really goes a long way to just praise the kids and say, you know, I appreciate it, you guys stay in your seats. Anything else? Okay, funny story. I almost forgot what I was gonna tell you. Ooh, getting to that age. Don't kill me, Brandy. It really wasn't her fault. So she sent out the invitation to everyone for our party, our Christmas party, our holiday party.
Send it to everybody.
And, well, typically we send it to Bonnie over at the district office, and then she invites the board. But she just forwarded the invite, and now they're all bringing a dish half. I thought it was pretty nice of them, though. They didn't even hesitate. They're like, all right, this is what I'm bringing. Yeah.
They're probably thinking, wow, this is different.
Yeah.
Weird.
Taste it now. All right, I'll turn it over to Matt.
So just a quick reminder, we all know it's getting cold out there. So when it is below 15 degrees, Jeremy or I come in, we start the buses in the morning, generally the ones at the middle school. Just a general reminder, if you're running a bus out of there and it's started, when you get back, leave the key behind. We have limited keys. And if yours isn't turned in, then the next cold day, your bus is not getting started until we get the key back. With that, when you guys are sitting at the schools, it is an EPA law. It is not just a Geneva thing. You guys are not supposed to be sitting at the schools within 500 feet idling a bus. That means when you're sitting there to pick up kids, you gotta shut the bus off. When you shut the bus off, you can't just sit there with the heaters going. They're not generating any heat from the engine when you're sitting there with the bus off. The heaters will still blow, but you're gonna lose all that heat real fast. The other thing you're gonna do is you're gonna kill your battery. Most of you guys have relatively brand new batteries. We've replaced almost all of them within at least the last year. But running all those heaters and everything else, you are gonna kill those batteries fast. Yes, I know it's going to be cold, so bring proper attire. Because when you're sitting at the schools, you need to shut the bus off before you're picking up students. Any questions on that? Also, when you shut the bus off, For those of you that don't remember, you can turn the radio on separately. You hit the power button on the radio, it'll turn on even though the bus is off. Alright, so we're gonna go over pre-trip today. I know, it's everybody's favorite thing, but how many people could tell me they could do their fluid checks on their own though? Several of you, but if you're here on the weekend and your bus was taken and you gotta take another bus, you might have to do your own pre-trip. Jeremy's not coming in to do the pre-trip for you on a Saturday or a Sunday. So these ones were just generically filled out as an example. So you see the one bus is bus 36. For a full-size bus, everything should be checked off except for the master cylinder, because you guys don't have brake fluid, your air brakes. And then right above where the mileage goes, there should be an NA on seat belts. And I see a lot of people mark this one off as acceptable or as satisfactory. Why is it an NA?
Because it doesn't apply.
You guys do not have seat belts. There is a separate one right down here at the bottom that says driver seatbelt. So the one up top is for passenger seatbelts, which the big buses do not have. On the little buses, you have the master cylinder, but down at the bottom, you do not have a neutral safety switch, and you do not have an air pressure gauge. Those should be marked NA. Who signs this line up here? The mechanic. It is only to be signed if somebody other than the driver does the fluid check. Now, I've had several pre-trip sheets come to my desk that have Jeremy's signature, but are dated for a Sunday or a Saturday. Just so people are aware, you cannot sign his name if you do your own fluid check, or just mark it off and say you did it. This is an IDOT sheet, so it is technically a government document you are forging.
Would it be because Jeremy did it Friday midday and then they had a trip Saturday?
Well, if they did that,
Cross his
the date
name
would
out?
have been for
Oh,
Friday.
the date, okay.
These ones that we're getting, and we've talked to those drivers specifically, they're being dated for Saturday or Sunday when he's not here. We can't be forging people's signatures. If you really don't know what you're checking when you go to do a fluid check, call me and let me know you need to take a different bus, but then we're gonna have to go over under the hood because everybody needs to know how to do under the hood. If you get pulled by the state to, when you go to renew your license to do it, they're gonna expect you to know how to do it. I know not everybody started out with having to know under the hood and that we do it for you guys, but you still have to know it. Any questions on that?
Yeah, if we had, like this morning, when I got my bus and the fluid check was done on Friday.
Okay.
Is that good for me to let that go, or do I have to?
It
do a
is.
fluid check?
The fluid checks are good for 24 hours or when school is not in session. So the weekends do not apply to that. If it was done on Friday, it's good through Monday.
Okay.
Unless it was used on Saturday.
Yep, unless it was used for a field trip, which you will have to pay attention to. That may occur now that we're gonna start running buses out of transportation. Additionally, some of you may have noticed, Mary and I have been doing fluid checks, and we found a lot of people aren't leaving their pre-trip books out. What Mary and I have started doing and told Jeremy to start doing is that if your book is not on your steps, if it's not on your seat, or at least on the dash right by your window, if you're in a little bus, we're not hunting for it. Your fluid check will get done, but you're gonna have to come in and get somebody to sign it, because we're not gonna hunt for your books anymore. It was taking us an extra 15 to 30 minutes doing fluid checks, trying to check everybody's books down.
Is it okay behind the fire extinguisher, wedged in?
I was gonna ask Jeremy, is that okay that I'm doing that?
Prefer it not, you can store it there when you're going down the road, but we prefer you guys leave it out so that we're not trying to find it.
Because they also get stuck and rip pages out too.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if it's wedged in there, maybe, if you wedge it in, I gotta wedge it out.
Gotcha.
Any questions? Did anybody not get the sign-up sheet? All right, for those of you that haven't done this with us before, it's the pre-trip inspection name game. So what we're gonna do is it's gonna be a picture of parts of a bus with numbers next to them. And you gotta properly identify them and what we're going to check on them. I'm not going to rattle it off. You guys might not be awake anymore, tired, and I know it's not everybody's favorite topic to go over. But I am gonna call out to you guys to tell me what they are and what you're checking. All right, so what is number one? Safety sticker. What are you checking for on the safety sticker? Date, mileage. How far out can the date and the mileage be?
10,000.
10,000 miles or 6 months. Which a lot of you, I'm sure, have noticed that your buses have started getting run to safety lane. You're getting new stickers on there. Double check them once in a while. Oh, that's great.
It's okay.
Doesn't matter. Number two is your wiper. It's pointing to your arm, but you're not really checking your arm. What are you checking? The wiper. Making sure what? That it's clear, that it works, it's not tearing. Number three is your wiring. So this is part of the stuff for under the hood. What are you checking for on the wiring? It's not cracked or broken. No frays, no exposed wires. Number three is your brake fluid. If you fluid check a little bus, you would have this on there. What are you checking for? Yep, make sure it's at the proper level. What else? It's not leaking. It's not leaking. And last one is your transmission fluid dipstick. You will notice the difference between it and the oil because the transmission one will always be red. What are you looking for when you check the transmission fluid?
The level,
The level. How do you check the transmission fluid? The engine running and the bus in neutral. All right. Number one is pointing to your hoses. What are you looking for when you check the hoses?
not leaking, they're not cracked.
Not leaking, not cracked, dry rotted, bulges. Good job. Number two is pointing to what?
The fan is belt.
Your belt and your fan. What are you checking for on the belt?
That it's taut, not too tight, not frail, not cracking.
Exactly,
Same
not
thing with the
cracked,
fan.
broken. How much play can you have in the belt?
Yeah.
1/4 inch. Number three is pointing to what?
Power steering.
That is your power steering fluid. What are you checking for in your power steering fluid? Checking for your level.
Crack.
No cracks, no leaks. And number four,
Steering column.
that is your steering wheel column. What are you checking for on that? Not bent, broken, damaged, that it is securely connected.
It's a huge one.
Number one is pointing to what?
Steering gear.
Pointing to this object here.
Steering gearbox.
It's your steering gearbox. What are you checking for on your steering gearbox?
Broken leaves.
No cracks, no dents, it's secure, in that it is not leaking. Number 2 is your shock absorber. What are you checking for? Not leaking, not missing part. Yep, that it is secure.
Yeah.
Number 3 is your leaf spring. What are you checking for? No cracks, that they're not misaligned, they're secured, yep, that the U-bolts, shackles are in place. Number 4, drag link. What are we checking for on that one? Not bent or broken. It's not loose. That it has its castle nut and cotter pin. It's hard to tell, but right here, there's a little nut that they call it a castle nut because it looks like a little castle tower sitting there. And last one, what is this piece it is looking at right here? It's your steering knuckle. Making sure it's secure, not cracked, broken, or damaged. Alright, so this one has disc brakes on it, but it is relatively the same. What is number 1 pointing to up here?
Dust cover.
It's your dust cover. Drums usually have these. We do not have them on our buses so that you can easily see inside and check the brakes. So what are you checking for on your dust cover?
Securely mounted.
Securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or damaged. Number 2, you'll only find these on the little buses. That is your caliper. What are you looking for on your caliper? Not leaking, cracked, broken, damaged. Everything's attached securely. Number 3, that is your brake hose. Whether it's a big bus or little bus, you have one. It either travels brake fluid through it or air. What are you checking for? Not cracked, not leaking. And number 4, it's the side inside of your tire. What are you checking for?
Cracks, bulges.
Cracks, bubbles, bulges, no cords showing. I know that seems like an odd one, but we've had it happen that the sidewall's rubbed up against the curb too much and cords start showing. Alright, number 1, it's a little hard to tell what it's pointing at, but what is it pointing at up here? It's your treads. What are you checking on the treads? Depth?
If it's even wear or.
Even wear? Perfect. What's the depth for the front tires? 430 seconds. What about the back? 230 seconds.
They gotta be of the same type,
Yep.
and they gotta be new, they can't be retreads.
Correct. How many people use the tread depth gauge in their bus on a regular basis? A few of you? There are tread depth gauges in the buses if the person before you didn't take it out of the bus.
Yeah.
But they were put in every single bus so that you guys can check them. Just make sure when you guys check them, if you do, don't put it on the wear indicator. You gotta make sure you're in the farthest part of the tire. If you land it on the wear indicator, you're gonna get the wrong reading.
What farthest part,
So when you're looking at the tread, you'll notice that there's little, as you're going through the tread, there's little knobs that are coming up in the center. Those are wear indicators. And basically that means is once it's gotten up, once your tread is level with that, you are at a point of no return on your tire. So when you go to check your tread, you want to make sure you're not hitting one of those when you're using the gauge. Because that adds, what, another 1 or 2 30 seconds, Jeremy?
It seems redundant,
Seems redundant for what?
in the sense that the wear indicator tells you that it's good or not.
Correct, but they don't, the wear indicator is not actually set at 4:30 seconds. Seems like a flaw, but it's not set at 4:30 seconds. It's set at 2:30 seconds. So for the rear tires, it works, but it doesn't for the front.
Is there a
I
particular
didn't know
tread
that.
line that we should do, or does it matter?
No, you're looking for the farthest part of the tread, but you don't want to, you're trying to check multiple spots to make sure that you don't have a low spot that's, so if it's wearing uneven, you're gonna go by where the uneven wear is, if that makes sense, because it's wearing down faster on that side. Number 2 is your sidewall again. I won't make you guys repeat that one. Number 3 is what? That is your hub. What are you checking for? No leaks, that bolts aren't loose. How would you know if it was leaking other than it just running out of it? You can have a spray ring from you tires spinning as you go. Number 4 is your lug nuts. On the little buses, these are not to be mistaken with the plastic caps that are sitting over top of them if you still have them on there. We've taken them off because there were several instances where the little black cap was missing and people thought they were missing a lug nut. But we're also required to take them off for safety lanes, so it just became easier to just leave the silver caps off.
That's why we need to go buses.
And number 5, that is your rim. What are you looking for on your rim? No welds, no cracks, no dents. If you hit a good enough pothole, they are big, but you will still dent them. We've had it happen to a couple of them. Number 6 is really hard to see. It's your valve stem. What are you looking for on your valve stem? And it's got a cap, but it's straight, not bent, and secured.
How do we, check the air? Is that just Jeremy that does that, or can we do that?
Well, that's the hard part, because your typical tire gauge doesn't go up to what the pressure of a school bus tire is at. School bus tire pressure is at 100 or above generally. And your typical gauge, because we've looked at it, they're not cheap for the ones that go up high enough for your big bus tires. So generally, looking at it, trying to remember, we figured out it was, I think it's, if you're looking at your tires and the treads, there's about 5 notches of tread, 5 or 6 that actually touch the ground. And if you start seeing more than that, then you know your tire is low, but that only applies to the big buses. They used to tell you if you gave the tire a good kick, you just stood backwards and kind of kicked the tire, you'll know pretty quickly whether it's flat or not.
I push my head with my foot.
Yep, you can do it that too.
It's soft, then you kind of know.
Scott?
Yeah, when I did truck overweights, what we did is we got behind the tire, and you could see the footprint was squeezed together. So
Yep.
if you see them squeezed closer to the other tire, that usually tells you it's
Yeah.
underinflated.
If you're at the back of the bus and you're looking under there, you can easily see them. The footprint of one looks wider than the other one, you're gonna know it compared to the others. If you think it's low, call us and we'll fill it with air. All right, passenger side of the engine. Number 1 is your wiring again. Number 2 is your hoses. Number 3 is your oil dipstick. You know, it's because it's orange in there. How do we check the oil? Yep. With the engine off, you pull it out, wipe it off, reinsert it, and pull it back out, and make sure it's within the level. Number 5 is pointing to your belt and fan again. And number 6 is what? Coolant. That is your big important one for the winter because that is where all your heat is coming from. Making sure it's at its proper level. If you see a puddle underneath your bus, you need to let us know for any fluid, but if you see an orange one, then it's likely your coolant. All right, number one is what? It is your door. What are you checking for on the door?
That rubber is pliable, not cracked.
Yep. That the gasket seals, that the rubber is pliable. What about the glass? It's not broken, it's sealed. The windows are a double pane window. If you got fog in the middle of them, those have to be replaced. Number
Doors on the door are double pane?
Yeah, they are double pane, and there's a seal that keeps them separated, and those seals can break. And you will get like a fog in the middle, in between them, that you cannot get rid of. Number two is your hand railing. What are you checking for on the hand railing? That it's secure. We don't need the kiddos grabbing it and falling down with the hand railing. And number three is the steps. What are you checking for? Your tread. It's not loose, secured.
Not rotted.
Not rotted. Well, we have lots of salt, that will happen. It'll get all busted up. Alright, inside of the bus. Number one is what? That is your radio. You guys have to check that every morning. That is a requirement by law to have done. Number two, it is, well, it's pointing at your switches in general, not specifically one or another. Because this layout, this is not a picture of our bus. This is a gasoline engine bus. So all the switches you guys have may not be there. But it's basically getting at, you're checking all your switches, making sure everything works. Your fans, your heaters. Number three is pointing to steering wheel. How much play can you have in a steering wheel? 10% or 2 inches. Number four is pointing to your gear shift. I've heard people complain that these get stiff, especially the buses that sit and do nothing. You gotta run them through their gears each day, or it will get tough to put them into reverse. I know we don't always back up, but you still are supposed to run it through all the gears to make sure that the alarm goes off, that you can run it into each gear. And what's the other thing we have to check when we're checking the gear shift?
Neutral safety.
The neutral safety switch. You're making sure that it only starts in neutral. So as you're putting it into each gear, you're supposed to be trying to start it. And number five is hard to see down there.
Is it your pedals?
It is your pedals. What are we checking for at the pedals?
That the rubber is intact, that the
Rubber's intact, nothing flapping, and that there's nothing underneath of them. All right, we have our instrument cluster. So number one is pointing to this one over here.
Trans fluid.
That is your trans fluid. What operating temp do you want it to be at? Between 150 and 200. The easiest way to remember the temperature ones is it should be somewhere between the 10 o'clock and noon position. Number two is pointing at your water, which is your coolant. Where should that be? Numbers, Scott, numbers. Between 170 and 200. The fan does not kick on until you hit 218. So if it goes past 200, don't be alarmed. Wait and see if it shoots back down. If it starts climbing and the alarm goes off, that's when you need to be concerned. It's not something that's likely to happen during the winter time, but just something for you guys to be aware of. Number 3 is what? That is your tachometer, RPMs. Number 4 is your miles per hour, your speedometer. Your tach and your speedometer, you're not going to know until you hit the gas pedal. Number 5 is your voltage. Where should that be sitting at? 14 to 16, somewhere in between there. Number 6
Oil pressure.
is your oil pressure. This one gets a little bit tricky with the oil pressure. This is going to be somewhat dependent on your bus because it's going to change. It's also going to change on if you just started your bus, it's been running for a while. Ideally, you want it between 40 and 60. But when you just started the bus, it might run higher than that. When you're sitting idling doing nothing, it might be closer to 20. And number 7 is what? Fuel. Where's your fuel supposed to be? Half or above in the winter, or what in the summer? 3/4 of or above in the summer. Or sorry, 1/4 and above in the summer. Now there's 2 gauges on there that, or not on there that we have, which is air brakes. How many of you guys do your air brakes at least on a weekly basis? Should be everybody that drives a big bus. You gotta make sure that your air pressure is working appropriately. If it dies down in between routes, it is normal. It's same as if you got an air compressor at home, the pressure will die down over time. It can't keep that constant pressure without the engine running. And the last gauge that we don't have on here is your DEF gauge. Where's that supposed to be? Half or more. The only reason we say half or more is because they seem to have a problem once you get below a half. Either reading incorrectly or giving you faulty codes when you get below it, so it's just easier to keep it at half or above. Front of the vehicle. Number 1 is your clearance lights. Number 2 is your 8-ways. I'm going to skip around a little bit on this one. Number 4 is what? Turn signals. And number 5 is what? Headlights. What are you checking for on all your lights? That there's no cracks, that they're working, not missing, and that they're the appropriate color. Number 3, windshield. What are you checking for on your windshield? Cracks. That the sticker's there. No cracks, no chips, no nothing. Can't have any of that. Number 6 is your mirrors. What are you checking for on your mirrors? That they're not cracked, broken, missing, loose, they're secure. And number 7, that is your crossing arm. What are you checking for on your crossing arm? Make sure it works. And it's there, it's secure. Why are we making sure that it works?
You need to rent the high school.
Keeps kids 10 feet away from your bus. Always got to make sure it works. Or if you're at the high school, use your cancel and make sure that works. Put it away so you're not wedging it into the bus.
Can't walk between buses.
The cancels don't work until it's fully extended.
Well, until the motor thinks it's fully extended. Once it, because I've done it out here before, is if it hits the electrical pole, like when you guys are parked in the bays, it'll hit that pole and it'll just keep trying to run, but when you hit the cancel, it will bring it back in. So it doesn't have to be completely extended out. But it does take a second. If you hit it immediately, it probably is not gonna respond right away.
It doesn't. Not ready to get it.
All right, side of the bus. I'm not gonna make you repeat the windows all over again. What is number 2? Is your fuse panel. What are you looking for on your fuse panel? Anything out of the ordinary. Just checking it to make sure that there's nothing unusual in there. And if you have black smoke coming out of it, Serge, you have something seriously wrong. Number 3 is your stop arm. What are we checking for? That the lights work, that it extends. Do both of them have to work? Yes. Just because the back one works doesn't mean you can go out. They both have to be working. Number 4 is your battery box. What are you checking for?
Make sure the tray drawer is locked.
Yep, make sure it's locked, no corrosion, and that there's nothing out of the ordinary. All right, number 1 and 3 are pointing at what? Number 1 is a little tricky. It's supposed to be pointing at the number there. It's pointing at your lettering.
Oh.
What are you checking for on your lettering and your numbering? It's not ripped, torn, peeling, that it's legible. Yes, that it says Geneva. We've had one that said Geneva SCU. It was missing the L. Number 4 is pointing at what? Reflective tape. Reflective tape is same as your lettering. Make sure that it's there around all your emergency exits and that it is not peeling or torn. And number 5 is pointing at your rear duals. What are we checking on the duals that we don't on the front?
Make sure nothing's left between them.
Nothing's between them.
They're the same tire.
That they're the same tire, that the tread is relatively even. Should also be looking underneath to the opposite tire to see if the inner wheel seal is leaking. You guys can see the outside one, but you can't see the inside very well. If you look underneath from the opposite side, you can see if there's a spray pattern on the inside of the tire. Number 5 is pointing at what?
Emergency exit.
Your emergency exit. What are you checking for on your emergency exit? That the buzzer goes off, that it stays in place, that it opens and closes freely. Number 4 is pointing at your glass, but we're going to talk about the sticker. What sticker is that? Comment on our driving sticker. Got to make sure that's there and that it is legible. We've replaced most of them, but there were a lot of them that were peeling that nobody had ever written up, and we started tearing them off and replacing them. All right. For your lights on the back, what's the far yellow one? Turn signal. The middle red one. Brake light. The white one. Reverse. What's the small red one? That's your tail light. Making sure that they're all working correctly. Number 7 is pointing to your muffler, your exhaust pipe. What are you checking for on that? That's attached. If it's loose or not. The little buses, they are prone to breaking those hangers that are on there. You'll know it because it'll rattle like crazy when you're driving 8 is your bumper. What are you checking for? Making sure it's not rusted, that it's secure, it's not damaged. One that it's not pointing to on here is your license plate. You should be checking that, or at least the sticker. What are you looking for on the sticker? And it's not expired, and you're supposed to be checking to make sure it matches your registration, but I don't think we all carry the registration to the back of the bus with us. What do we check on the passenger side that we don't on the driver's side? Gas door. What are you checking for on that one? That the cab's secure. If you have a door, that it opens and closes securely. And if you're in a big bus, you've got one more door. What is that? Your deaf door. Checking the same thing. Number 5 is pointing underneath the bus. What are you supposed to be checking under the bus? For any leaks? But you're checking for the exhaust, drive shaft, and your frame. Yep, you've got U-hangers that hold up the drive shaft. Keep it, they catch in case it's broken. Same with the exhaust. You're looking for soot patterns on the exhaust to make sure it's not leaking. Checking the frame to make sure it doesn't have excessive damage. No, I don't expect you guys to climb on the ground and look underneath of there. If you stand back far enough and just kind of bend or look underneath, you can see most everything under there. All right, number 1 for the inside is pointing to what? That is your signage. It's just a general, it's pointing to the manufacturer sticker, but it's your general signage. Same as the outside, you're making sure that it's clear and visible. Number 2 is your mirror, your student mirror, not your backup mirror. What are you checking for on your mirror?
Securely fastened, not cracked, broken, or damaged.
Securely fastened, not cracked, broken, or damaged. If it's loose, let us know and we can tighten it for you. Number 3, your first aid kit. What are you checking for in your first aid kit? Fully stocked and it's secure. Same with your body fluid kit. Number 4, fire extinguisher. What are we checking for? Date, tag, make sure it's up to date, it's been checked, and that the needle is in the green. Number 5 is your garbage can. What are we checking on a garbage can? Shouldn't be more than half full. There are garbage cans outside of all of the bays, or inside all the bays and outside at the middle school. Make sure you guys are emptying them. All right. I know this is a boring one, but we're on our last slide, so bear with me. Number 1 is what? Roof hatch. What are you checking for on the roof hatch? That it works, the alarm goes off, and that it's secure. Number 2, your emergency window. Same as your hatch, you gotta open and close them every day. Make sure that they work, the alarm goes off. Number 3,
Interior lights.
interior lights. What are you checking for on your interior lights? That they work.
Damaged, not burning carpet.
Not cracked, broken, or damaged. Number 4
Seats.
is your seats. What are you checking for on your seats?
Backs and bottoms.
Backs and bottoms. What are you checking for on the bottoms? That they're securely fastened. We don't need to get into an accident and have the seat come flying up with the kid on top of it.
Also check any kids haven't made any holes in them.
Yep, make sure no kids have made any holes in the seats at all. What else are you checking for on the seat backs? When you grab the tops of them. Checking for the padding. Over time, that padding wears out. So when you grab the top of it, you shouldn't be able to feel the metal bar through it. If you can, soak in a child's face if they get into an accident. And number 5 is your runner. What are we checking for? Bubbles, that it's secure, no tears, nothing to trip on. We're also checking the railing. We're in Illinois, we get salt during this winter time, and all those kids drag it right in with them. And those things will rot away and become a tripping hazard. Any questions on pre-trip? Questions on anything at all? All right, you guys are free to go.